Hey, welcome back, Flat Black Junkie. And just like I told you last time, we're going to get into the differences in this one between spraying and brushing. Both of them are effective, but they do have their differences, and we're going to get into that on this one. We happen to have the perfect video for it because, oddly enough, as we were working at this job here, as you're watching me work here, we were talking about the neighbors calling another company, and they're out there today spraying. So we have a spray crew and a brush crew working at the same time from two different companies. We ended up shooting the shit with them later, so everybody got along. Obviously, we're not out here trying to smack each other around, but it was cool to watch. The owner of the company's the old dude, and he's got his granddaughter actually working with him. So they were all out there working together. We got some video of the fellas spraying it at the end, and we're going to go over some of the differences here today. Let's watch this little clip I got going on first, though.
Professional, okay? Let's go.
Buonasera.
After much deliberation, I've decided to break it down like this. It seems to be the easiest. So we're going to go over the timeline here of your pavement's life, when you should use a spray coat and when you should use a brush coat. Technically, for me, I'd brush every one if I could afford it. So if it's about money, I'll tell you where you want to save and where you want to start thinking about maybe going a little heavier and starting to brush these things. Because when you think about it, when you're doing this, you're thinking about how much am I going to spend? I mean, do I need it? Like, what's the quality of my asphalt? Is this going to make it better? How long is this going to help me make it last? And this chart right here kind of shows you your typical lifespan of pavement. You know, you can get up to 20 years, sometimes 30. I mean, really, it all depends on the base underneath. If you got a really solid base, like you're in a nice chunk of land that's got a really good base, and you can base your asphalt really well, and you don't have a lot of trees that keep, moisture over it and block the sun off of it. The sun does hurt it a little bit, but it also helps it to dry off when it gets wet. So if you're in a really dry area, go ahead and cover it with trees. But if you're in a really wet area, leave it some space to dry out. These are optimal conditions, obviously. Sometimes you just live on a piece of land that's got some asphalt for a driveway. It's, about 10 years old, but you've had trees down the whole thing. And it's you're not going to tear out all your trees. So you just kind of got to deal with what you deal with, right? So this is like an average lifespan, okay? So your average lifespan is somewhere around, I don't know, I'm going to say 20 years. This thing's showing you at about 14 years if you don't take care of it. You can get it to be about 20 like I said, with a good base. Sometimes even 30 if you're like really lucky, you get the perfect material, perfect base. But this is kind of just giving you an average, all right? Okay. So, as you can see here, the seal coat and crack repair slowly over time will draw out the dipping of that line there. That black line is if you don't ever service your asphalt and it's just left to the open. But that white line is when you're actually trying to keep it going. So let's follow that white line. If we follow it out, that's where you get that 30-year mark, right? So you can make your asphalt, no matter what, really last 30 years as long as it's not like horrible. Like if somebody puts you down a 1-inch run of asphalt, it's not going to last long. You know, if you got a good 3 to 6 inch run of asphalt with a good base under it, it's going to last you a little while as long as you take care of it. So when do you spray and when do you brush? Well, let's go take a look at this timeline here. You want to spray in the beginning. When your asphalt's brand new, you don't have any cracks on it really to speak of. There's no real surface damage. You might have a couple cracks here and there that a little bit of hot rubber can fill. And then you're just basically covering, the asphalt. It's nice and flat. No rock pops. No spiderweb cracking. No nothing. The spray will save you time. The spray will save you money because you're usually going to get it a little bit cheaper for spraying. Most companies charge a little bit less for spraying because you're using less material and you can go a little faster, less manpower even. So those are all your benefits for spraying. And you can use those benefits. You can capitalize on those benefits on brand new asphalt. The only thing you're going to have that you don't have when you're brush applying sealer is a pump. So you actually have to have a piece of machinery to spray. And you have to know how to use the pump. And you'll have to know how to service the pump to a point, at least to keep it running while you're working. I mean, it's going to get to a point where you're going to have to take it to a service tech or learn how to service it yourself because you're going to have some issues with it down the road. And all these things are wrapped into the spray part. Okay, you have a wand, you have a hose, you have the pump, you have, these things that you have to make sure you have in order to use the spray setup. Now, granted, once you have all these things, your job gets a lot easier. Physically, it's a lot easier to spray a job. So if I'm steel manning the spray, I'm going to tell you it's quicker, faster, it's easier on the body. I mean, that's really about all of it as far as the benefits. So let's move down this timeline here. So let's say we're going down, you're spraying, you're applying spray each year. You're going to get to a point where you're going to start to realize, man, there's a lot of cracks in here. And every year, after a certain amount of time, when the cracks actually start to develop, you're going to realize they get worse and worse and worse. Even though you're servicing, you're not going to be able to keep this going forever. So they're going to start cracking up. These properties are going to start falling apart. And there's going to be a point to where spraying it just ain't cutting it no more. It's not getting down into the cracks enough. All these surface fissures and things that are starting to pop off. It's going to start, all the dipping, all the potholes that are going to start developing in these sunken areas that you're going to start noticing. All those have to be filled in somewhat. This is going to be where you're going to think about starting to brush apply. Because when you brush apply, you have other added benefits. You have the added benefit of quality. When you brush apply, you're putting sealer into all those cracks that you can't really spray into without overspraying. Okay? And you're going to stroke it at many different angles in order to make sure that you're covering well. We call that coverage, When you're spraying, you're covering good, but you're not overspraying. You don't want to overcover and create like a mess. Same with when you're brushing, you don't want to leave big puddles everywhere. So there's a fine line. Now, when you get good at brushing or spraying, but more so with brushing, you're going to end up getting pretty fast. And the difference between a slow brushing seal coater and a fast brushing seal coater is a lot greater than a slow spraying seal coater than a fast spraying seal coater. I hope I said that right. Basically, the difference between your slowest sprayer and your fastest sprayer is going to be smaller than your difference between your slowest brusher and your fastest brusher, just because there's more involved in brushing. There's a lot more areas to improve in brushing. When you're spraying, all you got to do really is hold the hose and have a good pattern, and you have to go at a certain speed when you're applying a spray. It's coming out of a hose. It's not really, you regulate how fast it comes out, and then you just got to stand there and lay it out. When you're brushing, you can lay out puddles and puddles of seal coat, enough for 4 and 5 guys to keep busy. So as long as you're good and fast and you learn how to be quick, that discrepancy gets a lot smaller between spraying and brushing. So now let's say you're trying to decide whether you want to spray or brush a big parking lot. Okay. Once it gets to a certain size, you're going to say, okay, once it gets this big, we got to start thinking about spraying it because it'll be quicker. We're going to save a little money here and there for the customer, for ourselves, and for everybody. But once you get down to a certain size, or even if it's big and it's so big, but yet it's beat up to where spraying it's not going to do much, well, now it's kind of up to the customer. Okay, do you want to brush it? Do you want to spend a little bit of extra money and a little bit extra time? Or are you just trying to paint it and make it black? Because it's going to cost you a little bit. It's going to cost, and we're going to have to be here for a little while. So that's kind of on the customer where they want to really go with it. How well do they want to maintain it? If they are maintaining it, there's a certain level that we'll kind of come down to, but we're really sticklers about our quality. As far as manpower, spraying is going to cost you less men. If you want to keep up with the sprayer, you're going to have more guys on the brushes. Now, when it comes to the cleaning and stuff, the more guys you have for a dirty job, the better. And honestly, if it's really nasty and dirty job, you don't really want to spray it anyway. So spraying's mostly reserved for the new stuff and the stuff you can do quick, or the really, really big stuff that ain't too bad, that you can cover it quickly and you ain't got to sit there forever trying to brush everything. So overall, I'd say if I had to break it down and keep it simple, spraying saves you time, a little bit of money, a little bit of effort, but it costs you in having to have a pump, and you have to take on all the responsibilities of having to use a pump. With the spray rig, it's actually spraying sealer, it's pumping sealer. And obviously sealer dries up, and you have a lot of issues with the pump if you don't take care of it, you don't winterize them. So it's just an added extra thing in order to save you that money. It's well worth getting into and well worth figuring out, though. As far as brushing goes, you're going to have to take back some of that time, take back a little bit of that money. It's not a whole lot, but it is some. You have to put in a little more effort, but you're not going to have to deal with the pump. Now, dealing with the pump isn't as big a deal as I may make it sound, but when it comes to dealing with it, when you have to deal with it, it can really stop you and stop your whole process if that pump's no good. As long as you can still seal coat, physically you can still seal coat with sealer, with some sealer. And there's also the added benefit of knowing for sure, hands down, that the quality of the job as far as the coverage is going to be way better when you're doing it with the brush. So those are pretty much your discussion points with your family, with your shareholders, whatever, when you guys are deciding whether you want to do your home or your business. These are the deciding factors you're going to have to think about. Besides, what company are you going to use? Because you want a company that can do both. Because if you have a company that can do both, they understand these things that I'm talking about with you right now. They understand why you would want to spray, why you would want to brush. And if they're telling you anything different than what I'm telling you, question it. Or question me. Leave me something in the comments. I'd like to answer any of your questions. So, but brushing, if you get really good at it, it's really useful for the smaller jobs. The smaller you get with the job, the more brushing seems to be the route you would want to take. Once you get down to the size of a driveway, now we're talking, you don't really want to spray. I mean, if you have a pump and that's all you got, and you don't really like brushing, maybe you've had a bad back or something, spraying is easier on the body. And as long as you go slow and keep your pressure down, you won't overspray. The only thing is you can't really work on the windy days, and you have to really watch the overspray and be ready to clean stuff up. And I just think brushing looks better. When you brush apply on like a middle to later in life asphalt driveway or asphalt parking lot, it just looks a lot better to brush it. It fills the cracks better. It just has that real crisp look to it. And then when you paint it, my goodness gracious, forget about it. It's well worth paying the little bit extra you have to pay in order to brush it, as long as the guys have the time to do it. It does take a little bit longer. On a 100,000 square foot parking lot, I'd say our crew would probably take It'd probably take a couple hours extra on 100,000 square foot. At least a couple hours. Because spraying it, man, you can blow it out. We got 2 spray rigs. We can just split that thing 50-50 and boom. When you're brushing it, well, maybe a couple hours. Just about a couple hours. But it's still going to take you a little longer. And when you're spraying, if you're not using 2 crews, or if you do even bust it down to 2 crews with as big as our crew is, we can almost send one of our trucks home with a few guys in it that don't really have anything to do. They're just kind of walking around. So it will save a company in labor too to be able to spray. But again, those savings and those good times only last until the asphalt that you're working on starts to get even worse. Because then you're going to have to just start brush applying to make sure you're getting enough material into there to actually do some work. So I hope this really helped you guys figure out what you want to do, whether you're thinking about spraying or whether you're thinking about brushing. My personal opinion is just brush it, man, because even when it's brand new, if you don't care about money, it looks really crisp brand new too, brushing. And if you're worried about having a spray rig or anything, you don't have to spray brand new. You can brush it just fine. Just make sure we call those sliders. Just make sure you don't put a lot of material down when you're working. Just use as much as you need to get going, because it flies. Now, sometimes the brand new asphalt is porous a little bit, not compacted enough, maybe had large aggregate. Sometimes you'll want to brush those the very first application, and then you can spray it for a few years or so, but get that initial brush in if it seems like it's a little airy, you know what I mean? But if you hadn't noticed, down there to the right is the other SEAL team over there spraying their lot. What do you know, a little friendly competition. It was pretty fun, though. I got to fly my drone over there, and they enjoyed it. They talked to us for a minute. They talked to Ryan and a couple other guys. I was more packing my stuff up, getting out of there, but I hope they get to watch this one. We told them about the station. Hope they didn't give up on us. I'm trying to save a little content for middle of the season, but it's looking like I'm gonna run out. I'm crazy with it, so I'm gonna have to make some more stuff up. So far, we're enjoying our time here on the off season. Speaking of the off season, here's another shameless plug for our new off season channel, Man of the Year. Just a bunch of stupid stuff like we do here, folks. Trying to get a little production quality practice time in. Come check us out where I do stupid stuff like I don't know, I'm melting metal. I'm doing a couple little silly things, but enough to keep some content flowing. So come check that channel out. That'll be my off-season channel. I'll keep anything unsealcoat related there. So why don't you just go ahead and mosey on over and check her out when you get a chance. But before we leave it to the end of the video, let me just say that we hope you're enjoying your time. It just so happens that today is Halloween. We got Thanksgiving coming. We got Christmas coming. The Lions are doing good. Man, it feels good to be part of the Michigan Midwest right now. And let's not forget, New Year's is coming. And in a few days here, regardless of how you look at it, regardless of who you wanted to pick or who you voted for, we're going to have a new president. So we're going to be moving forward in one way or another. So we're going to finish off and let's go ahead and watch everybody finish their day out real quick. We'll see you on the next one. Out on that flat. Black.